He was the younger brother everyone called reckless, useless, impossible to save. But on one rainy night in Hangzhou, one signature, one hidden contract, and one mistake worth 38,000 yuan dragged his entire family into a trap no one saw coming. His sister thought she had spent her whole life cleaning up his disasters, until she realized this time he hadn't just fallen into trouble, he had uncovered something much darker. And the boy who never knew how to bow would become the only one brave enough to stand up.
The younger brother who would not bow. Chapter 1. A rainy night on Qingha Street. That evening, rain began falling over Hangzhou just as the last light of dusk faded. It was not a heavy rain, only persistent and cold, tapping on the black roof tiles of Qingha Street as if someone were patiently drumming old fingers on an old table. I had left work late, a folder pressed to my chest, my coat clinging to me in the damp wind. Ahead, outside my mother's noodle shop, the red lantern swayed back and forth, casting a thin orange glow on the wet stone pavement. From a distance, it looked like a streak of hot porridge spilled across the road. I had planned to go straight back to my rented room, take a hot shower, and sleep. The next morning, I had to submit a quarterly report for Hangzhou trading. But the moment I turned into the alley, I heard my mother shouting until her voice cracked. "Lin Yi'an, you stop right there!" I froze. In our family, whenever my mother called someone by their full name, that person had definitely committed a major offense. I stretched my neck and looked through the rain. A crowd had gathered in front of the shop. 2 young men in black leather jackets, a heavy-set man wearing a gold chain, and a tall, skinny boy whose ear my mother had pulled bright red. The boy was my younger brother, Lin Yi'an, 20 years old, a second-year student at a vocational college in the suburbs, famous in our family for one special talent, turning every small problem into a disaster with an invoice attached. I walked over and forced my voice to stay calm. "What happened?" Mother saw me, and she looked as relieved as if the police had arrived. "Wanqing, you came at exactly the right time. Your brother signed something and these people came to collect money." Yi'an looked at me, his lips moving without a sound. There was still mud on his face. The green hoodie he was wearing had a tear down one sleeve, making him look both pitiful and highly deserving of a lecture. I turned to the heavyset man. He opened a leather briefcase, took out a stack of papers stamped in red, and placed them on one of the noodle shop tables as if presenting evidence in court. "Your brother rented our space for an online performance, damaged equipment, and ruined an advertising agreement. Total, 38,000 yuan. He signed. He pressed his thumbprint. There is no denying it." I picked up the papers. Rain fell beyond the awning. The smell of bone broth from the noodle pot mixed with the damp leather of the briefcase and made my stomach twist. The name on the contract was Lin Yi'an, the signature curled like a worm stepped on by a shoe. At the bottom was a copy of his ID card. "Yi'an," I asked, "what did you rent the space for?" He lowered his head. His voice was so quiet, the rain almost swallowed it. "To shoot a video." "What kind of video?" "A video to prove I could earn money by myself." I closed my eyes. In my mind, the entire history of Lin Yi'an's growth flashed by. In 3rd grade, he sold my homework to his deskmate for money to buy game cards. In 6th grade, he gave the neighbor's dog a haircut and tried to charge a styling fee. In his final year of high school, he borrowed money from friends to buy a second-hand camera and announced he would become a director, only to film father snoring on the sofa and get chased around the yard for it. Other people grow through experience. My brother grows through a series of small explosions.
The heavy-set man tapped the table. "We are not here to argue. Pay, or tomorrow we go to his school. We can also go to your company." Mother's face went pale. Father, Lin Wanqing, came out from behind the kitchen. He had been a middle school teacher before early retirement for his heart condition. He usually spoke softly, but that night his eyes were as heavy as the rain. He looked at Yi'an, then at me. In this family, ever since father got sick, all eyes eventually landed on me. I was the eldest daughter, 27 years old, working in administration and accounting. My salary covered rent, father's medicine, and part of Yi'an's tuition. I was not rich, but I was the only person who still looked reliable. I set the contract down and said to the man, 3 days, give us 3 days to check the documents and speak with a lawyer." He laughed. "A lawyer? Little sister, you watch too many dramas." I looked straight at him. "If the contract is valid, we will pay. If it is not, I will report threats and the pressure placed on a student to sign unfair terms. Would you rather argue under our security camera or go home and wait for a phone call?" I said it because I was not confident, but because I knew that sometimes poor people also have to speak as if they have a private lawyer. Otherwise, others will step on your face before you even bend down to pick up your wallet. The man glanced at the little camera under the awning, and his expression shifted. At last he took back the papers, tossed me a copy, and said 3 days, not 1 hour more. After they left, the noodle shop became uncomfortably quiet. Mother sank onto a chair, her hands trembling. Father returned to the kitchen to turn off the stove. Yi'an stood in the middle of the room like a broken umbrella abandoned after a storm. I asked, "Do you know how much 38,000 yuan is?" He nodded. "You knew and you still signed?" He raised his head, his eyes red. "I know. If I succeeded, I could have paid it back in 1 night. They said the video could go viral." I laughed, but the sound was like a knife dropping on tile. "Viral? You traded the dignity of this whole family for the word viral?" Yi'an pressed his lips together. He wanted to argue, but when he saw Mother clutching her chest, he swallowed it. Suddenly I felt tired. Tired of the rain, tired of contracts, tired of that sickly yellow light, tired of being the grown-up in this family, when I also wanted to cry like a child. That night, after Mother had fallen asleep, I saw Yi'an sitting at the shop entrance. The rain had stopped, and water dripped from the eaves in even little drops. He hugged his knees and stared at the narrow river across the street. I stood behind him, ready to scold him again, but he spoke first. "Sister, I don't want Mom and Dad to keep lowering their heads and borrowing money from other people." I said nothing. I know I was reckless, but I really wanted to do something useful.
Night wind passed through King Hay Street, carrying the smell of wet moss and the last faint sweetness of osmanthus. I looked at my brother's thin back and suddenly remembered the year he was 7. Father had been in an accident, and I had brought Yi'an to stand outside the emergency room. He cried until he hiccuped, but he still wiped my tears with his sleeve and said, "Sister, don't be scared. I'll protect you when I grow up." He had never really protected anyone, but maybe he still remembered that promise in the clumsiest way possible. I sat down beside him. "For the next 3 days, you do exactly what I say. Do not meet anyone alone. Do not sign anything. Do not post anything online." He nodded quickly. "And tomorrow morning, take me to the place where you filmed." Yi'an froze. "What are you going to do?" I looked at the black water flowing past the foot of the bridge. "See whether the trap you fell into has any way out." He exhaled, light as someone who had been forgiven, but I knew it was only the beginning. In Hangzhou, the rainy season makes every alley look the same and covers every stain with water. To find out who had pushed my brother into this, I would have to step into the dark before morning came. Chapter 2. A contract that smelled of cold tea. The next morning, Yi'an led me to an old building behind Xintang Electronics Market. Dawn had only just broken, but the stalls selling parts were already open. Bluetooth speakers dangled from counters playing old love songs, bargaining voices mixed with the squeal of electric scooters braking too sharply. The building my brother had rented was squeezed between a phone repair shop and a milk tea store. Its faded sign read, "Creative Space." I looked at those 2 words and could think of only 2 others: danger ahead. The studio was on the 3rd floor. The stairs were narrow and dark. Posters covered the walls: models wanted, streamers wanted, online sales partners wanted. All of them used the same phrases: high income, no experience required, just dare to try. Such words are as pretty as honey, but there is often a needle hidden inside. Yi'an walked half a step ahead of me, slower with every floor. "Sister, I really didn't know I'd have to pay that much. When I signed, they said it was only a registration form, not the real contract." "Who said that?" "A guy named Zhou Jiaheng. He goes to my school, 2 years ahead of me. He said he knew a media company in Shanghai." I wrote the name into my phone, Zhou Jiaheng. Even the sound of it felt glossy, like someone online who always posts photos of coffee and a laptop, while behind the screen he may be borrowing money from 3 different people. The studio door was locked. A rough paper notice had been pasted to it, temporarily closed for equipment inspection. I crouched and looked at the lock. Not new, not broken. Yi'an said that after the argument the night before, the venue owner had thrown him out. I looked around the hallway and spotted a small camera in the corner of the ceiling. If there was footage of the signing, we might learn how my brother had been led into it. "Where's the building manager?" I asked. Yi'an pointed downstairs. "Old Mr. Shi watches the entrance, but he's hard to deal with." The old Mr. Shi he mentioned was a white-haired man sitting in the security office, drinking tea. On his desk, a fat yellow cat slept curled into a ball. I knocked. He did not look up. "If you want to rent a room, book online. If you want to collect money, go to the management company. If you want to find someone, I don't know them. I placed a bag of roasted chestnut cakes from the market on his desk. I'm not renting, not collecting, and not looking for a missing person. I only want to ask whether the hallway camera footage from the night before is still saved. Old Mr. Shi glanced at me. Who are you? The older sister of the reckless kid who signed a contract upstairs. The cat opened one eye as if it too wanted to confirm which reckless kid we were talking about. Yi'an stood behind me, red all the way to his ears. Old Mr. Shi looked at him and snorted. I remember you. That day you wore a yellow jacket and carried a box of instant noodles saying you would become a star. It was green, Yi'an murmured. To me, every noisy child is yellow. I almost laughed, but kept a serious face. Sir, if you can let us see the footage, I only need to confirm whether anyone pressured my brother when he signed. My family doesn't want trouble. Old Mr. Shi sipped his tea and said nothing for a long time. Finally, he pointed at a plastic chair. Sit, wait for my grandson. I don't know how to turn on the computer. His grandson arrived 15 minutes later with 2 cups of hot tea in his hands. He wore a white shirt and black trousers. He was tall, with a face so clean that even the old hallway seemed a little less dark. Old Mr. Shi called him Huai Ji. Shi Huai Ji. I remembered his name because when he bent down to open the computer, his voice was gentle, unlike someone who liked interfering in other people's business. Which date do you need? He asked. I gave him the time. He dragged the footage forward, and the screen showed the 3rd floor hallway at 8 p.m. Yi'an appeared with a box of instant noodles, just as old Mr. Shi had said. Then 3 others arrived. One of them was a young man with slicked hair, a brown jacket, and an easy smile. Yi'an pointed at the screen, Zhou Jiaheng. There was no sound in the footage, but we saw clearly that Zhou put an arm around Yi'an's shoulder and led him into the room. About 20 minutes later, they returned to the hallway. Zhou held the paper, patted my brother on the shoulder, and pointed where he should sign. Yi'an hesitated for a long time. Another person held a phone close to his face, as if filming. In the end, Yi'an lowered his head and signed. I asked Shi Huai Ji, can this video be exported? He looked at his grandfather. Old Mr. Shi waved a hand. Export it. Then I won't have to watch children trick each other inside my building. Yi'an let out a breath of relief. I did not feel relieved. The video showed pressure, but it might not be enough to cancel the contract. As for the damaged equipment, if they created evidence, we still had to face it. Shi Huai Ji handed me a USB drive. You should also check the rental contract for the studio. This company only moved in 2 months ago. Before that, the 3rd floor was my family's tea warehouse. Your family's? The building belongs to my grandfather. I only help with paperwork. Old Mr. Shi snorted. Help, you come once a week. Ask you the electric rate and you have to check your phone. Shi Huai Ji smiled softly. Grandfather, I brought Longjing tea for you. Leave the tea, then go do some real work. I thanked them and was about to leave, but when we reached the 1st floor, Shi Huai Ji suddenly called me back. He handed me a photocopy. This is the business registration of the company renting the room. I kept the copy because they were late paying rent. The legal representative is not the man who came to your home last night. I took the paper and read the name, Lan J Culture Media Company, legal representative Lo Men. I did not know who Lo Men was yet, but I felt that this was not just a simple case of my brother being foolish. Someone stood behind those polished contracts, those sweet promises, and those young people too eager to prove themselves. On the way home, Yi'an walked beside me and kept stealing glances. At last he asked, Sister, was that Shi guy handsome? I glanced at him. You still have the mood to ask that? He just wanted to change the subject so you wouldn't be so tense. If you want me less tense, be quiet. He immediately shut up. About 30 seconds later, he said, But he really was handsome. I raised my hand. He dodged, I reflex. Watching that movement, I was both angry and amused. Maybe a person can never hate her little brother for long, especially when his foolishness has become a kind of family asset. When we returned to the noodle shop, Mother was picking vegetables. Father sat by the window with a newspaper, but I knew he had not read a single word. I explained the situation in broad strokes, leaving out the most frightening parts. Father listened, then lowered the newspaper. If we really have to pay $38,000, I'll sell the old watch. The watch was a keepsake from my grandfather, and Father had kept it for more than 30 years. I said at once, we are not there yet. Father looked at me, exhausted. Wanqing, you don't have to carry everything alone. I wanted to answer, if I don't carry it, who will? But I did not say it. Some sentences only hurt the listener without making the speaker feel any lighter. That afternoon, I took the contract to a free legal consultation office near our neighborhood. The person on duty was a young lawyer surnamed Tang. After reading the contract, she frowned. The penalty terms are unusually heavy and possibly unfair, but the signature is real. If you want to handle it, try negotiating first while collecting evidence that they hid the content or applied pressure. I asked, "What if they go to my brother's school?" She said, "Record audio and video. Don't get into a physical conflict, and don't hand over cash without a written settlement." I nodded. As I left the office, my phone buzzed. An unknown number sent a message. "If you want to save your brother, come to Banshan Tea House tonight. Come alone." I stood beneath the plane trees and stared at the words for a long time. The sender knew I was Yan's sister, knew I was trying to save him, and seemed to know I had begun digging. I turned and called Yan, but his line was busy. Rain began to fall again. This time, it was no longer light. Chapter 3. Banshan Tea House. Banshan Tea House stood on a small slope west of West Lake, a place tourists rarely visited after 9 at night. By day, the area looked elegant. White walls, curved eaves, bamboo and shrubs planted close to the path, the smell of drying tea leaves mingling with damp stone. By night, everything resembled an ink painting onto which someone had poured even more black ink. I stood before the gate, a black umbrella hiding half my face, while Lawyer Tang's advice repeated in my head. Don't go alone, don't bring cash, don't get into conflict. I failed all three. I went alone because if I told my parents, Mother might faint and Father would insist on going in my place. I brought no cash, but there was a bank card in my bag, and the balance on it was pitiful. As for avoiding conflict, I could only hope that everyone tonight would be more civilized than my brother. Inside, the tea house was nearly empty. A waitress in a pale green qipao led me to a private room at the end of the corridor. The wooden door slid open, and the smell of aged pu'er tea poured out. 2 people sat inside. One was Zhou Jiaheng, the young man from the video, his hair still slicked until it shone. The other was a woman in her 30s wearing a white suit and deep red lipstick. She sat very straight, a small untouched cup of tea before her. "Lin Wanqing?" she asked. "Yes. I am Luo Min, in charge of Lanjie." I sat across from her. "If you want to collect money, send the documents through official channels tomorrow." Luo Min smiled. "You speak like someone life has taught thoroughly. And you speak like someone who enjoys teaching others lessons." Zhou's face darkened at once, but Luo Min laughed. She poured tea for me, each movement slow. "I like direct people, so I'll be direct. Your brother damaged our advertising plan, but I do not want to push a student too far. 38,000 can be reduced to 15,000. Pay within 2 days and everything ends." 15,000 was still a lot of money, but it was less than 38,000. If I sold the gold bracelet Mother had given me for graduation and added my savings, perhaps it would be enough. I looked at the teacup and did not touch it. "Why are you being so kind?" Luo Min tilted her head. "Because I once had a younger brother, too." The sentence should have softened me. Instead, I felt cold. Someone truly kind does not send messages asking others to come alone at night. I said, "I need a written settlement. It must state that after receiving payment, your side will make no further claims and will not contact my brother's school, family, or my workplace." Zhou slapped the table. "Where do you think you are setting conditions?" I turned to look at him. "I'm in a tea house, not a gambling room. Lower your voice, or people might think Lanjie specializes in pressuring students." Zhou's face reddened. Luo Min raised her hand to stop him. "Fine, I'll give you a settlement, but you must also delete the security footage you got from the building." My heart gave a small jolt. They knew about the video. I kept my face steady. "What video?" Luo Min smiled. "Miss Lin, pretending does not suit you. Xie Huiji gave it to you, didn't he?"
This time I fell silent. Luo Min sipped her tea, her tone still light. The Xie family owns several old buildings in Hangzhou. Huiji believes he can live cleanly outside all disputes, but business has no room for people who are too clean. Don't drag him in. I suddenly understood. The problem was not only Yi'an. Lanju rented space from the Xie family and used ambiguous contracts. They may have targeted more than one student. If the video came out, they would lose the location, lose face, and lose a chain of income. 15,000 was not kindness, it was the price of silence. I stood. "I'll think about it." Zhou blocked the door. "There is no thinking. You came here, so sign an acknowledgement first." I looked at him. "Move." "And if I don't?" I opened my phone. The screen already showed Lawyer Tang's number. In truth, I had not pressed call, but Zhou did not know that. Then I called someone over. Also, before I entered, I sent my location to a friend. If I don't answer in 10 minutes, she calls the police. It was a lie. I had no friend free at 9 in the evening to rescue me from a tea house, but perhaps I said it calmly enough. Luamin looked at me for a few seconds, then nodded at Joe. He stepped aside through clenched teeth. I left the private room and walked down the corridor. Outside, rain swept across the awning. I had just opened my umbrella when I heard someone call, "Miss Lin?" Shay Waji stood under the eaves on the other side, holding a gray umbrella. I was so surprised I forgot to keep my face cold. "Why are you here?" "Grandfather asked me to bring tea to Banshan. I saw you go in." I did not believe the coincidence, but I did not ask. He looked toward the private room behind me. "Did Lanju make things difficult for you?" "Nothing serious." "You're shaking." Only then did I look down and see my fingers white around the umbrella handle. I laughed softly. "Also nothing serious." Shay Huaji did not laugh. He opened his umbrella and stepped down the stone steps. "I'll take you home." "No need. I'm not asking permission." It should have sounded rude, but his voice was so calm, as if he were merely announcing that it was raining. I walked beside him. Rain fell on our two umbrellas, making a small, private space in the dark mountain street. We were silent for a long time. At last, he said, "Lanju has been reported before in another district. They lure students into live-stream training contracts, then charge equipment fees, image fees, and cooperation break penalties. Not everyone dares to file a complaint." I asked, "You knew and still rented to them?" He stopped. Streetlight fell across his face, cracking his usual composure for the first time. "When they rented, I didn't know. Later, I wanted to terminate, but the lease is under my uncle's management company. Grandfather didn't want the family to quarrel. So every family has places where words get stuck. I thought only poor families like ours had to swallow anger to keep peace. It turned out people with buildings, long Jingti, and cars parked out alleys had contracts that trapped them." When we reached the noodle shop, Yi'an was standing at the door, soaked through. He ran over. "Where did you go? I kept calling you." I looked at him, and the anger I had pressed down all night surged up. "You still know how to worry? Why didn't you worry when you signed? Why didn't you worry when you followed Zhou Jiaheng?" Yi'an froze. Mother rushed out from the shop and paused when she saw Shi Huazi. Father leaned against the doorframe, pale. I knew I was losing control, but I could not stop. "You wanted to prove yourself, fine, but by dragging the whole family into debt? Do you know Father was going to sell Grandfather's watch? Do you know Mother could not even finish a bowl of porridge today?" Yi'an lowered his head. "I'm sorry." "Sorry won't pay the money." The moment the words left my mouth, I regretted them. Yi'an looked up. In his eyes there was no longer just shame, but something deeper, like being struck in the place that hurt most by the person he trusted most. He said quietly, "I know. That's why I sold my camera." I stopped. "He sold it this afternoon. I got $4,200. I wanted to give it to you, but you went somewhere without telling me." He took a crumpled envelope from his pocket, the edge damp from rain. That old camera had taken him 2 years to save for. It was the only thing he truly treasured. I looked at the envelope, my throat tight. Shi Huaizi silently placed a spare umbrella by the door and left. I did not have time to thank him. Mother pulled Yi'an inside to change clothes. Father looked at me as if he wanted to say something, then did not. I remained under the awning, listening to the rain, feeling for the first time that I might be able to defeat outsiders, but lose to my own exhaustion. That night, I opened the USB drive and watched the video again. In one enlarged frame, I saw Zhou Jiaheng show Yi'an something on his phone before he signed. The screen reflected faintly in the glass door, but I could still make out one line of message. "If you don't sign, photos of your father will be sent around the school." I sat up sharply. Photos of father? What had Yi'an hidden me? Chapter 4. The Secret in Father's Drawer. In our house, the third drawer of the wooden cabinet in my parents' room was forbidden territory. No one said it was forbidden, but since childhood, Yi'an and I had understood. Mother kept old savings books, medical papers, a few family photos, and the things adults called matters to worry about. Children were allowed to touch candy, toys, and exam papers with high marks. Everything else belonged to the world of silence. After seeing that line in the video, I sat until nearly 2 in the morning. Yi'an slept in the storage room with the door half closed. Mother was too tired and had fallen asleep beside Father. I stood before the wooden cabinet for a long time, my hand on the tarnished brass handle. If I opened it, I might find the answer. I might also break the last bit of dignity Father had tried to keep. In the end, I opened it. Dignity could not save anyone from debt.
Inside the drawer was a hospital file. I recognized father's name, Lin Guozhang. Beyond the heart test results I already knew, there was a notice for unpaid auxiliary medical costs and a handwritten loan note. The lender was Zhou Jianping. Amount 20,000 yuan. The interest was written vaguely. The date was 3 months earlier, exactly when father said he was only going for a routine follow-up. I held the note and sat on the edge of the bed. So our family was not only facing Yi'an's contract. Before my brother caused trouble, father had quietly borrowed money. I remembered that month. Mother complained the noodle shop was slow. Father said the new medicine was covered better by insurance. I was busy with year-end reports, sent home an extra 2,000 yuan, and believed everything was fine. People say an adult is the pillar of a family, but sometimes the pillar stands in the middle of the house so long it fails to notice the floor has cracked. The next morning, I placed the loan note in front of father. Mother was chopping scallions in the kitchen and turned at the sound of paper. Father looked at the note and his expression changed. Yi'an came out of the storage room, hair messy. When he saw the paper, he stopped too. "Who is Zhou Jiaping?" I asked. Father silenced. Yi'an whispered, "Zhou Jiaheng's father." I looked at him. "You knew?" He nodded, avoiding my eyes. "I found out after Joe showed me the loan note. He said Dad owed their family money. If I didn't cooperate with the video, they would go to Dad's old school and say he refused to repay his debt." Mother dropped the knife onto the chopping board. "When did you borrow money? Why didn't you tell me?" Father closed his eyes. In one night, he seemed to have aged many years. "I didn't want everyone to worry. During that checkup, the doctor said I needed longer monitoring and a change of medicine. I thought once the subsidy came in a few months later, I could repay it." "Then why didn't you tell me?" My voice sounded colder than I meant it. "Am I an outsider?" Father looked at me, pain and self-blame in his eyes. "Wanqing, you already worry too much. I didn't want you to think your life had only your parents and your younger brother left in it."
The sentence struck a place I had not protected. I was 27. Some of my friends were traveling in Xinjiang, some were buying small apartments in Shanghai, some were preparing for marriage. I calculated utility bills, medicine costs, and every time Yi'an called asking for money. I had never said I was sacrificing because saying it sounded like collecting emotional debt, but not saying it did not mean I was not tired. Yi'an suddenly knelt. He dropped so fast his knees hit the tile with a hard sound. "It's my fault. I thought if the video worked, I could earn money and pay Dad's debt. Zhao said if I acted and played along, they would share the commission. I didn't know they were using the contract to trap me." Mother began to cry. Father reached to help Yi'an up, but he would not stand. I looked at them, and my anger tangled into a knot. I was angry that father had hidden his illness, angry that Yi'an had been foolish, angry that mother always endured, angry that I had not noticed sooner. But anger was useless now. Zhao Jiaping, Zhao Jiaheng, and Lanzhu had tied 3 ropes around my family's neck, an old debt, a new contract, and the fear of losing face. I said, "Stand up. From now on, no one kneels in this house." Yi'an raised his head. I picked up the loan note and the contract and put them in my bag. "We'll handle each matter one by one. Dad, this afternoon I'll take you to the hospital to ask clearly about fees and records. Mom, you stay at the shop and don't receive strangers. Yi'an, you're coming with me to school to meet your counselor." He opened his mouth. "Why meet my teacher?" "To warn them someone may come cause trouble. Only a fool hides until someone catches him unprepared." Yi'an stood silently. This time he did not argue. That afternoon we went to his vocational college in the suburbs. The campus was wide, with many ginkgo trees and yellow leaves scattered over the paths. Yi'an walked beside me, occasionally kicking a dry leaf. He looked younger than 20, like the little boy I used to drag by the ear for losing the house key. His counselor, Mrs. Su, was about 40, wearing silver-rimmed glasses. After hearing the story, she sighed. "It's not only Yi'an. Last month, 2 other students were also persuaded by a media company to sign training contracts. One was so frightened she temporarily stopped attending school. The school is collecting information, but the students are afraid to come forward." I asked, "If my family provides the video and documents, can the school help?" "Yes, but the other side is very good at avoiding responsibility. They say every transaction was civil and voluntary." Yi'an suddenly said, "I'll come forward." I turned to him. He swallowed but continued, "I signed, so I'll take responsibility. If other students were misled, I can say so." Mrs. Su looked at him more gently. "Are you sure? People may talk." Yi'an gave a crooked smile. "People have talked about me since I was little, teacher. Calling me absent-minded isn't completely wrong." I smacked the back of his head lightly. "Don't use other people's words to insult yourself." He rubbed his neck and whispered, "Yes." As we left the school, I received a call from She Huizi. He said his grandfather wanted to see me. I asked whether it was urgent. He replied, "My uncle just received a demand from Lanzhu. They want to terminate the lease early and claim compensation. They say the She family violated their business rights by giving you the video." I stopped in the middle of the campus. Yi'an looked anxiously at me.
I took a breath. Lanzhou was counterattacking. If they dragged the Shay family in, Shay Huaji might suffer because he helped me. I said into the phone, "I'll come now." On the taxi ride back to the city, Yi'an sat beside me for a long time before asking, "Sister, is there anything I can do?" I looked at him. For the first time in days, I did not want to scold him. "Yes. What?" "Remember exactly how today feels. In the future, before you do something foolish, open that memory and look at it." He nodded, so solemn it was almost funny. But I knew that from the moment he said he would come forward, the brother who had only known how to cause trouble had begun learning to lower his head not from fear, but from understanding responsibility.
Chapter 5. The Shi House and the Wind Chimes. The old Shi residence stood behind a white wall covered in ivy, not far from the lake. The wooden gate opened into a small stone courtyard. A tall ginkgo grew in the center, and beneath it stood an ebony tea table. Wind chimes hung under the eaves and touched each other softly, clear but cool, like porcelain striking autumn air. I came with Yi'an, but told him to wait in the courtyard. He immediately protested. "I'm involved too." "Are you involved, or are you a mobile disaster?" He shut up and obediently sat on the stone step to play with old Mr. Shi's yellow cat. The cat gave him a glance of contempt that looked very much like mine. In the sitting room, old Mr. Shi occupied the main chair. Shi Huaji stood by the window. Across from them sat a man in a gray suit, about 50, with sharp eyes and a narrow chin. No introduction was necessary for me to guess that he was Shi Huaji's uncle, Shi Yongnen, the man who managed the building leasing company. Yongnen looked me up and down. "Miss Lin, because of your family's matter, we are now facing a compensation demand of 200,000 yuan. How do you intend to take responsibility?" I bowed to old Mr. Shi first, then answered, "If the Shi family is sued for providing evidence to help a harmed party, I will testify about the whole matter, but I cannot take responsibility for Lanjui's wrongdoing." He smiled coldly. "Very fine words. Poor people are often good at speaking principles because they don't have to pay with their own money." I heard Yi'an move in the courtyard, probably about to rush in. I turned and glared at him through the door gap. He immediately sat back down, holding the cat as if it were a fragile vase. Shi Huaji spoke. "Uncle, the video comes from a security camera in a public area. Providing it to the person involved so they can protect their rights is not a violation of the lease." "You read a few legal articles online and think you're a lawyer?" said Yongnen coldly. "Do you know Lanjui is the biggest tenant this quarter? If they leave, who makes up the revenue? Your grandfather or Miss Lin here?" Old Mr. Shi set down his teacup. The sound was not loud, but the room instantly went quiet. "Yongnen, rent matters, but the Shi family is not so poor that we must allow people to mislead students under our roof." Yongnen pressed his lips together. "Father, nowadays everyone earns money through contracts. If students don't read carefully, they bear the result." I thought of my father. He too had believed he could borrow for a few months and repay, only to fall into vague interest terms. The person who signs often has fault, but the person who deliberately hides traps in every line is more frightening. I took out my phone, opened the enlarged frame showing the threatening message, and placed it on the table. This is not merely a case of not reading carefully. They used my father's loan note to pressure my brother. If the Shi family continues protecting Lanjui, this will not remain a simple civil dispute. Yongnen looked at the screen, his expression changing slightly. Shi Huaji bent to examine it, brows furrowed. Old Mr. Shi asked, "Do you have the original?" "Yes, and my brother's school is also collecting reports from other students." Yongnen stood. "Are you threatening my family?" I answered, "I am asking your family not to stand on the wrong side."
The air tightened like a drawn string. In the courtyard, the wind chimes sounded again. The cat gave one long meow, as if delivering judgment. At last, old Mr. Shi said, "Huaji, contact the lawyer. Terminate Lanju's lease under the clause for improper use of the premises. Yongnian, from today, the rental files for the Shintong building will be handed to Huaji for review." "Father!" "I am still here." Old Mr. Shi's voice remained calm, but it was heavy. "This house is still mine to decide." Shi Yongnian left in anger. When he passed me, the scent of his cologne was so strong it made me frown. Outside, Yi'an pretended to stroke the cat, but his eyes followed the man's back. I knew he was learning a new lesson. Adults are not always right just because they wear suits and speak loudly. After the conversation, Shi Huaji walked me to the gate. He said, "I'm sorry, my uncle speaks harshly." "It's fine. I've heard worse at the vegetable market." He laughed.
It was the first time I saw him truly laugh, not just curve his lips politely. The smile softened his usually cool face, and for a moment I did not know where to look. I glanced at Yi'an. He was trying to stuff the cat into the pocket of his hoodie and got scratched. "Serves you right," I said. Shi Huaizhi asked, "Do you always talk to your brother like that?" "No, usually I'm fiercer." "But you protect him carefully." I was silent. Carefully? I had scolded him until he sold his camera without daring to tell me. I had called myself the person carrying the family and used that burden as the reason to be angry with everyone. Perhaps protecting and hurting sometimes are separated only by one sentence. I asked him, "Have you ever been tired of standing in the middle of your family?" Shi Huaizhi looked at the ginkgo courtyard. "I used to think that if I didn't fight, everyone would be peaceful. But not fighting sometimes only leaves room for others to do wrong." That sentence followed me all the way home. That night, Yi'an and I helped Mother close the shop. He washed bowls, I wiped tables. Father sat in the corner taking his medicine. No one mentioned the debt, but this silence was no longer as heavy as before. Yi'an broke a bowl while washing. Mother started to scold him, then saw him crouch down in panic to pick up the pieces, and only sighed. "Watch your hands." Yi'an looked up, his eyes bright, as if rewarded. I turned away so I would not laugh. Near 10 o'clock, just before closing, a girl walked in. She wore a cream-colored coat, her hair tied low, her face pale. She looked around and asked, "Is this Lin Yi'an's family?" Yi'an stiffened. I put down the towel. "Who are you?" The girl looked at Yi'an, her eyes red. "I'm Chen Yutong. I also signed with Lanzhou. They said if I don't pay, they will spread private, edited videos of me." The whole shop fell silent. Outside, wind passed beneath the eaves and made the little bell Mother hung by the door sound dry and sharp. In that instant, I knew our story was no longer the story of one family.
Chen Yutong sat in my mother's noodle shop, both hands around a cup of hot water as if it were a life-saving object. She was a final-year fashion design student. She had joined a commercial modeling training course organized by Lanzhou. At first, they said she only needed to take a few advertising photos, and afterward they would introduce clients. She signed because her roommate had signed too. They dressed her in ordinary outfits, filmed an interview, then demanded additional image editing fees. When she refused, Zhao Haiyang sent her several edited clips and implied that if she did not pay, those images would appear in class group chats. Mother trembled with anger as she listened. "How can they be so cruel? She's someone's daughter." Yutong lowered her head. "I didn't dare tell my parents. My family is in Wenzhou. They think I'm doing well at school. If they knew I was tricked, they would be disappointed." I looked at her and saw not only fear in her eyes, but shame. People like Lanzhou understood shame very well. They did not just demand money, they made the victim blame herself first, so she would have no strength left to blame the ones who hurt her. Yi'an stood beside the table, his face white. Perhaps for the first time, he realized that what happened to him was not an isolated accident, and that his own recklessness might have been one link in a trap built for many people. He whispered, "I'm sorry. If I hadn't brought more people into that filming group." Yutong shook her head. "It wasn't your fault. I signed before you. I also invited another friend. We all thought we were just grabbing an opportunity." Father looked at the two young people before him and sighed. A real opportunity does not make people sign while they are afraid. The sentence was simple, but it quieted the whole shop. I suddenly remembered that Father had taught for nearly 30 years and met every kind of student. He might not be good at earning money or talking about his illness, but he knew how to look at a child who had lost the road without immediately condemning them. I called Miss Su. Half an hour later, she arrived with two other students, one male and one female, both of whom had signed with Lanzhou. They sat around the large table in the noodle shop, each telling a piece of the story. Those pieces formed a map. Lanzhou targeted students who wanted to earn money, become visible, or help their families, used acquaintances in school to build trust, made them sign papers with vague titles, filmed videos to apply pressure, then demanded compensation, training fees, or settlement money. Zhao Haiyang brought people in. Luo Min handled negotiations. Zhao Jianping, Zhao Haiyang's father, lent money to families already in weak positions. I wrote down every detail. Lawyer Tang stayed on the phone with me until nearly midnight. Finally, she said, "If several people come forward together, the chance of handling this improves. But prepare yourselves. They may try to smear you in return." Yutong bit her lip. A male student named Han Ri lowered his head and stared at his shoes. Ms. Su said, "The school will protect your personal information, but if we want to work with the police, at least some of you must agree to provide statements." Yi'an raised his hand first. "I agree." I looked at him.
He did not look at me, but his raised hand was very straight. A second later, Yutong raised hers, then Han Ri, then the other girl. 4 young hands hovered under the noodle shop lights, so fragile they made me want to cry. After everyone left, Mother cooked another pot of noodles and insisted that anyone still there had to eat. Yutong ate slowly. Tears fell into her bowl before she noticed. Mother handed her tissues and muttered, "Eat, child. You need a full stomach to fight." I laughed. Mother had never studied law, but her survival philosophy was always accurate. The next day, we went to the local police station. I brought the contract, the loan note, the security footage, Yutong's messages, and written accounts from the 4 students. The officer on duty was a middle-aged man surnamed Ma. At first, he listened calmly, perhaps because contract disputes like this were too common. But when Lawyer Tong analyzed the signs of coercion, threatening pressure, and questionable lending practices, his expression grew serious. "We will accept the report and invite all parties for questioning," he said. "During this period, if they continue to threaten or pressure you, report it immediately. Do not meet them privately." I nodded. Yi'an stood beside me, both hands clenched. When we came out of the station, he suddenly released a breath like someone who had just finished an exam. "Sister, am I going to be detained?" I looked at him. "Are you hoping to be?" "No, but I did sign the contract." Lawyer Tong smiled. "Signing a contract is not a crime, but next time read before signing. If you cannot understand it, ask someone who can." Yi'an nodded solemnly like a primary school student. I glared at him. "Even reading doesn't guarantee you'll understand." "Then I'll ask you. I am not a free lifetime advisory service." He grinned, looking like himself for the first time in days. I wanted to scold him more, but my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number read, "You think pulling more people in means you win? Watch your brother's school forum tonight." I immediately opened the student forum. A new post was gaining attention fast. The title read, "Poor student pretends to be misled to avoid paying company fees. Sister leads the scene." Under it were photos of Yi'an signing papers, our noodle shop, and even father entering and leaving the hospital. The first comments had already appeared. "Another family trying to escape responsibility. If you want fame, accept the cost. This family looks suspicious." Yi'an looked at the screen, all color draining from his face. I turned off the phone, but it was too late. People say rumors online are like fire. To me, they are more like dirty water. Once someone throws a bucket, the whole street smells. That evening, strangers came to take pictures outside the noodle shop. Mother closed early. Father sat silently for a long time, then said, "I have dragged everyone down." I placed my hand on his shoulder. "No, the wrong person is the one who used your illness to pressure us." But saying that didn't make the comments disappear. At midnight, Yi'an knocked on my door. He stood outside, eyes red, phone in his hand. "Sister, I want to post an apology video. I'll say it was all my fault, so they stop attacking Mom and Dad." I looked at him. This was the familiar reaction of someone forced into a corner, taking all the blame to buy peace for loved ones. I had done it for many years. I knew it saved no one. It only tightened the rope. I said, "Do not apologize for being harmed." "But they're going after our family." "Then we tell the truth. We don't bow our heads." Yi'an stared at me, as if he couldn't believe those words had come from his sister. Perhaps I couldn't believe it either. Until now, I had lived by avoiding trouble, paying bills on time, offending no one, keeping our family small and quiet. But that night, looking at Father's photo in that ugly post and Mother's trembling hands, I understood that peace bought with silence had never been cheap. I opened my computer and began writing a response. No insults, no tears, only time, place, contracts, pressure, other affected students, and the report already filed. Xie Huaiji sent me the Xie family's notice terminating Lan Jui's lease due to suspected improper use of the premises. Miss Su sent confirmation that the school had received complaints. Lawyer Tong edited every sentence so we would not be countersued. At 3 in the morning, we posted it. I did not know whether anyone would believe us. Only I knew that when I clicked send, Yi'an stood behind me and said softly, "Sister, let me carry it with you from now on." I did not turn around. If I had, he might have seen my eyes were red. I only said, "For now, carry the dishwashing for a month." He answered very quietly, "Okay."
Chapter 7. A City That Likes to Watch. Hangzhou in the morning can be so beautiful it is hard to believe the whole internet scolded you the night before. Thin mist covered the lake, elderly people practiced Tai Chi beneath willow trees, buses crossed the bridge with soft sighs of brakes. My phone, however, was not beautiful. It had been vibrating non-stop since 6. Our response was shared faster than I expected.
Some people apologized for judging too quickly. Some said we should wait for official results. Some continued doubting us, because online, doubting the weaker side makes people feel intelligent. Yi'an sat at the shop entrance, peeling garlic while reading comments. His face changed color with every line. I snatched the phone from his hand. I told you not to read. I want to know what they're saying. Are they saying you're handsome? No? Then why read? He choked. From the kitchen, Mother called, "Give the phone to me. I'll scold them one by one." Yi'an and I said together, "No." Father laughed. His laugh was still weak, but it warmed the noodle shop. After days of tension, that laugh was worth more than money. Watching Father take his medicine, I secretly decided that after this matter ended, even if I had to change jobs, I would find a way to take him to a larger hospital for a better checkup. Around 10, Officer Ma called us to supplement our statements. Lanju had sent a lawyer, denied making threats, and said the students had voluntarily participated in commercial projects. Zhou Jiaheng had disappeared from the dormitory. Before leaving, I received a message from Shi Huaiji. "I am at the station. I have more documents about Lanju." Yi'an saw my screen and nudged my shoulder. "Brother Shi really cares about you. If you value peace, be quiet. I am only making an objective observation. Your objective judgment signed a contract for 38,000 yuan. He immediately shut his mouth. I discovered I still had the ability to be cruel, but at least this time he smiled. At the police station, Shi Huaiji provided Lanju's lease documents, including an equipment warehouse address and a list of people entering and leaving. He had also found records of late rent, proving Lanju had repeatedly changed how it used the studio. His uncle, Shi Yongyan, did not appear, but sent authorization for the Shi family's lawyer. I guessed that after the meeting at the old house, he had realized this boat could sink, and clever people do not stand at the bow once water starts coming in. Yu Tong arrived too. She wore a white blouse and tied her hair neatly. Her face was still pale, but her eyes were steadier. When the officer asked whether she agreed to provide the original messages, she trembled a little, then nodded. Yi'an sat beside her and did not speak much, only pushed a bottle of water toward her. Seeing that small movement, I suddenly realized my younger brother was not incapable of growing up. He was simply slow at it, and he often chose paths that frightened the family.
The questioning lasted until afternoon. When we came out, the sun was sharp. Xie stood under a tree and asked whether I wanted something to drink. I was about to refuse, but Yi'an spoke first. "My sister likes lemon tea with little ice." I turned and glared at him. He raised both hands in surrender. Xie looked at us with amusement in his eyes. "Then lemon tea with little ice. And you?" Yi'an brightened. "Me too." "You go back to help Mother," I cut in. His face fell. Xie kindly bought him a bottle of mineral water. He took it and whispered to me, "Sister, is he stingy or are you mean?" "Both. Go." After Yi'an boarded the bus, Xie and I walked along the lake for a while. He handed me lemon tea. I took a sip. It was sour enough to wake my soul. He asked, "Are you always looking after your brother like that?" "Looking after? I thought I was managing a prisoner. The prisoner seems quite obedient." I looked at the lake. "He isn't obedient. He's just afraid I'll be sad." After saying it, I realized how strange it sounded. I had always thought Yi'an feared my scolding, but in recent days, every time I went quiet, he panicked more than when I lost my temper. Perhaps in families, we are too used to using anger to hide worry, blame to hide love. Outsiders hear only knives. Only those inside know that beneath the blade is a hand trying to pull everyone out of the pit. Xie said, "I once had a younger sister." I turned. He looked into the distance, his voice calm but low. "My aunt's daughter, 6 years younger than me. When she was 17, a modeling company tricked her out of money. The family was afraid of losing face, so they didn't call the police. They just paid. Afterward, she left school for a year." I did not know what to say. He continued, "When I saw Yi'an in the video, I thought of her, so I wasn't helping only you. I was also helping someone I failed to help back then." Wind came off the lake, carrying the smell of water and lotus leaves. I suddenly understood why he always appeared so composed. Some people are not without feeling. They have simply learned to fold their feelings neatly, so they will not trouble anyone. I was the same. We stood side by side, two tired adults in a city too beautiful to contain so many ugly things. His phone rang. After he answered, his expression sank. When he hung up, he said, "Zhou Jiaheng has appeared." "Where?" "Lanju's equipment warehouse, but not alone. My uncle is there too." I froze. "Xie Yongnan?" He said Lanju was a major tenant, but if the relationship was only landlord and tenant, why would he be at their warehouse now? Xie called a car. I knew we should leave it to the police, but in matters like this, a few minutes can be enough for people to move evidence. We notified Officer Ma and went to the warehouse address.
It was in an old industrial district by the Qiantang River. When the car stopped at the end of the road, we saw a small truck outside the door. Zhao Zhiheng and 2 others were loading boxes. Xie Yongnen stood nearby, talking on the phone, his face tense. Xie Yz pulled me behind a low wall. "Wait for the police." I nodded. But at that exact moment, Yi'an came charging from nowhere like a broken firework. He wore the noodle shop apron, flour still on his hands, and shouted, "Zhao Zhiheng!"
I nearly fainted. Lin Yi'an! Zhou turned. Panic flashed across his face, then immediately became fierceness. Yi'an stood in the road, panting. "Give me back my camera." It took me 3 seconds to understand. The camera Yi'an had said he sold was probably not sold to a second-hand shop at all. He had sold it to Zhou in exchange for a promise to reduce the debt. Now the only thing he treasured was inside one of those boxes. Zhou sneered. "You still have the nerve to ask?" Yi'an clenched his hands. "It's mine. You signed a sale paper. Then show it to me." I looked at my brother, wanting to scold him and hug him at the same time. He was still foolish, but this time his foolishness came at the right moment. He was buying time. Xie Huaji understood at once and began recording everything. In the distance, police sirens started to sound. Xie Yongyan's face changed. Zhou muttered angrily and tried to jump into the truck. Yi'an rushed forward and grabbed the truck door. A man pushed him down. I did not have time to think. I ran out. Xie Huaji ran too. Everything happened very fast. Cardboard boxes fell. Straps snapped. Cameras, phones, contracts, and hard drives scattered across the concrete. In the chaos, I saw an old black camera with a frayed strap. Yi'an crawled up and held it to his chest as if holding a piece of his reckless youth. The police arrived immediately afterward. Zhou Jiaheng was detained for questioning. Xie Yongyan tried to explain that he had only come to inspect property, but Xie Huaji's face showed he did not believe it. Neither did I. While officers sealed the boxes, Yi'an stood beside me with a scraped knee. I asked, "How did you know the warehouse was here?" He mumbled, "I overheard you talking to Brother Xi on the phone." "Acting on your own again?" But this time I told Mom I was going out to buy scallions. I took a deep breath. Xie Huaji turned his face away, shoulders trembling slightly. I knew he was laughing. I was not. I grabbed Yi'an by the ear and pulled him toward the small ambulance waiting to check his injury. He yelped, but his arms stayed wrapped around the camera. The city likes to watch a spectacle, but that day, amid the dust of an industrial district, I saw a few things not meant for strangers to watch. A foolish younger brother learning to stand forward, a quiet man daring to oppose his own family, and an older sister finally understanding that protection doesn't mean keeping the people you love behind your back forever. Chapter 8. The Rope in the Zhou Family. After the warehouse incident, everything moved faster. Police found many sample contracts, lists of students, interview videos used without proper consent, and negotiation recordings containing pressure tactics on the hard drives. At first, Zhao Zhiheng was stubborn, saying he was only a part-time collaborator, but when Lo Min was called in, she immediately pushed most of the responsibility onto him. The woman who had sat in the tea house like the owner of the whole chessboard turned out to be only another person who knew fear once she entered the police station. What surprised me more was Zhao Zhenping. He had not appeared at the warehouse, but father's loan note was directly tied to him. Police discovered several similar loans with vague interest, and most borrowers were parents of students or small shopkeepers. He used local relationships to lend money, then let his son pull young people into land use projects. It was not a grand hidden scheme like in a film, but it was dirty enough to keep many families awake at night. I thought I would feel happy hearing that, but when Officer Ma called to say the investigation was expanding, I only felt tired. Some battles do not make you cheer even after you win, because you have had to pick up too many broken pieces along the way. The school allowed Yi'an to take a few days off to settle down. He stayed at the shop to help mother, and truly washed dishes for a whole month as promised. In the first 3 days, he broke 4 bowls, 1 porcelain spoon, and mother's patience. By the 4th day, he began learning to sort bowls by size, wipe tables along the grain of the wood, and before saying, "I can do it," he would glance at me to confirm whether doing it required signing a contract. I wanted to laugh but kept a stern face. Progress. His eyes lit up immediately. "Sister, are you praising me?" "I'm saying the bowl has progressed because it hasn't broken." His face fell. Mother laughed until she coughed. Father sat by the window copying his prescription notes, the corners of his mouth also lifting. I realized our family had not had a normal dinner in a long time. Normal meant mother complaining that the soup was too bland, father reminding everyone to drink warm water, Yi'an fighting for the egg, and me pretending to be annoyed while still giving him the larger piece of meat. A week later, Xie Huaji came to the noodle shop. He brought a box of tea and a bag of mandarins. Mother looked him over from head to toe with the eyes of a woman who had watched too many family dramas. "Huaji, child, would you like noodles?" I nearly choked on water. Behind Mother, Yi'an gave me a thumbs up. I stepped on his foot. He went silent at once. Xie Huaji was very polite. "Yes, Auntie, please make me a small bowl." Mother immediately cooked the largest bowl in the shop. Father invited him to sit. Yi'an set out chopsticks. I felt as if my entire family had sold me for the price of one bowl of beef noodles. After the meal, Xie Huaji said he wanted to talk about the Xintang building. The Xie family had decided not to lease to Lanzhou anymore. Old Mr. Xie wanted the third floor to be a student community space, workshops on reading contracts, safe part-time work, and a studio that could be rented cheaply but transparently. Huaiji asked whether I wanted to handle the paperwork part-time. I was surprised. I don't have experience organizing a community. You have experience reading contracts while in panic. Very practical.
Yi'an spat water. I glared at him, then looked at Shi Huazi. He had said it so seriously that I did not know whether to be offended or grateful. The part-time job would not pay much, but it could help repay Father's loan, and more importantly, it gave me the sense that something bad had been turned into something useful. I accepted. That evening, Shi Huazi and I planned the first session. We named it Before You Sign. Miss Su agreed to invite students. Lawyer Tang agreed to speak for free once. Yu Tong offered to design the poster. Yi'an also asked to help. "What can you do?" I asked. "I can stand at the door and hand out water." "As long as you don't hand out contracts." He clutched his chest. "Sister, I've changed." "I need time to verify that." The first Before You Sign session took place on a Saturday afternoon. The third floor of the Xintang building had been cleaned. The old streamer recruitment posters were removed and replaced with a whiteboard and a few potted plants. Old Mr. Shi brought tea and sat in the corner like a door guardian. Yi'an really did stand there handing out water, so serious that he handed water to the same person 3 times. More than 30 students came. At first, they chatted and laughed, assuming it would be another dull lecture. But when Yu Tong stood up to tell her story, the room slowly quieted. She did not cry. She explained clearly how she had been led into the trap, how shame had kept her silent, and ended with one sentence. "If you ever sign something and feel afraid afterward, don't blame yourself first. Find someone to help." Yi'an stood by the door, eyes red. When it was his turn, I expected him to fumble. Instead, he held the microphone, scratched his head, and said, "I am a living example of not reading a contract. If there were a prize for putting pen to paper faster than the brain can move, I would win first place. But after this, I learned one thing. Being foolish once is not as frightening as hiding that foolishness until your whole family falls into the pit with you." The room laughed. I laughed too. Not because I was mocking him, but because he had found a way to turn shame into a warning for someone else. That was a very Yi'an kind of growth, still clumsy, still loud, but beginning to be useful. After the session, a female student asked Lawyer Tang about a part-time job contract. Another male student said his friend had also been charged by a training company. More small stories began to appear. I stood by the window and looked down at the electronics market, where lights were beginning to glow. Before, I had only seen this place as noisy and chaotic. Now I saw that within the chaos were many young people trying to find a road, and one wrong sign could send them astray. Shi Huazi stood beside me. "You did well." "No, everyone did well." "You are still not used to accepting praise." I looked at him. "And you are very used to speaking as if diagnosing an illness." He smiled. The wind chime old Mr. Shi had temporarily hung by the window rang softly. In that moment, I suddenly felt calm. Not because everything was over, but because for the first time in a long while I was not standing alone. But ordinary life does not like letting people stay calm too long. That evening, Shi Huazi received a call from the hospital. Old Mr. Shi had fainted in the tea room.
Chapter 9. The Brother Who Would Not Bow. A month later, there was a preliminary result in the Lanzhou case. The company's operations were suspended pending investigation into suspected pressure tactics, improper images, and unfair student contracts. Zhou Jiaheng was called in several times. Zhou Jianping was also investigated for questionable loan practices. The money could not return immediately, but the compensation claim against Yi'an was temporarily stopped. Those 2 words, temporarily stopped, were enough to let Mother sleep one night without waking in fear. Father went for another checkup. This time he did not hide the bills in a drawer. He placed them all on the dining table. Mother brought out the shop ledger, I brought out my new salary sheet, and Yi'an brought out an envelope of part-time earnings. The whole family sat around the numbers as if around an unpleasant hot pot. No one was happy, but no one pretended either. I realized that when debt is spoken aloud, it does not necessarily become smaller, but fear certainly becomes lighter. Yi'an began helping at the third floor of the Sintong building. The Before You Sign space held sessions every 2 weeks. Lawyer Tang spoke about contracts. Mrs. Shu brought students to attend. Yu Tong designed posters. Old Mr. Shi sat at the reception table and poured tea for everyone, while Yi'an filmed videos, edited photos, and handed out water. He was so serious that he printed his own volunteer badge with the words, "Read carefully before signing." When I saw it, I wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. At the end of a sharing session, Yi'an showed me the first short film he had edited. It opened with Qinghe Street in the rain, then moved to Mother's noodle shop, the contract with the red stamp, Yu Tong's trembling hand holding a microphone, old Mr. Shi pouring tea, and Shi Huaji taping the whiteboard back into place. At the end, Yi'an filmed himself in a mirror and said, "I used to think success meant making many people look at me. Later I learned that helping one person avoid a pit is also a kind of success." When I watched, I sent him one word, "Good." He jumped at once. "When you say good, you mean very good? Interpret it yourself. Can't you praise me more clearly? No, too much praise and you might sign a contract with your confidence." He clutched his chest as if stabbed, but the smile at the corners of his mouth would not go away. Mother shouted from the kitchen for him to wash dishes. He answered loudly and then broke another porcelain spoon. Growing up, as it turns out, does not make a person immediately less clumsy. It only teaches him to bend down and pick up his own broken pieces. At the end of March, I left Hangzhou Trading. I was not fired. I wanted to study contract risk management and work officially part-time for the Sintong space. The decision kept me asleep many nights. I feared unstable income, feared worrying my parents, feared I was being selfish. But Mother just placed a full bowl of beef noodles before me and said, "You also need a road of your own." Father nodded. Yi'an raised a hand and swore he would never put socks in the rice cooker again, though no one understood what that oath had to do with anything. Shi Huaji came to the shop on the evening I announced my resignation. He brought magnolia pastries from old Mr. Shi. Mother looked at him with very suspicious eyes, while Yi'an kept coughing like a broken speaker. I pretended not to notice. After dinner, Shi Huaji and I stood beneath the awning. Spring rain fell lightly, not cold like the first night.
He asked, "Are you free this weekend? I have work at Sintong in the morning. Afternoon should be free. I want to go to Suzhou for wontons." I turned to him. He still spoke as seriously as if proposing a meeting, but his ears were slightly red. I tried to keep my face calm. "What are the terms?" "I pay, you choose the restaurant. No hidden fees, cancellation permitted if the rain is too heavy." "Acceptable." "Then will you sign?" I held out my hand. He looked at it, then took it. It was not the dramatic hand-holding from films, only a warm, steady touch, like placing a pen on a page both people had read carefully. Inside the shop, Yi'an whistled loudly. Mother told him to be quiet. Father laughed. I pulled my hand back, my face hot, but I was not angry. That night, Yi'an insisted on taking a family photo. We stood beneath the red lantern, Father and Mother in the middle, me on the left, Yi'an on the right, and Xie Huaiji pulled into the frame by Mother, even though he tried to refuse. Old Mr. Xie sat in front holding the yellow cat. Yu Tong pressed the shutter for us. Just before the flash, Yi'an shouted, "Everyone smile! This is the final scene of Season 1. I asked, "Season 1? What does that mean?" He grinned brightly. "Life is long, sister. There has to be a Season 2. The flash burst. I did not know what Season 2 would contain. There might still be bills, hospitals, failures, contracts that needed careful reading, and rainy days that made people want to quit. But there might also be spicy noodles, new classes, a trip to Suzhou, wind chimes, and a younger brother who finally understood that not knowing how to bow didn't mean being stubborn. It meant that when life pressed you down, you still found a way to raise your head and look directly at the truth. I looked at my brother through the camera lens. He was still Yi'an, slow to understand, noisy, clumsy, sometimes making people want to throw a slipper. But he had learned to apologize, to repay what he could, to wash dishes even if he still broke spoons, and to stand forward when others needed him. And I, the older sister who once thought she had to carry the whole family alone, was also learning to place the burden on the table so everyone could look at it together. Outside Qinghe Street, spring rain laid a thin shine across the river. Inside the shop, Mother's broth simmered. Father called Yi'an to close the door. Xie Huaji stood beside me and opened his gray umbrella. I stepped beneath the awning and listened to the rain touch the fabric, gentle as a new page turning. Season 2, if it came, we would write ourselves. The end.
Hey there! If you enjoy our audio content, don't forget to hit that like button and share this video with your friends. Most importantly, click subscribe and ring the bell to stay updated with everything Zuzu Audio. Support the channel and join our community today.